Welcome to Chamber Chat. This is John Tayer, President and CEO of the Boulder Chamber, and I welcome you to our bi-weekly opportunity to check in with our Boulder Chamber membership and the business community at large to talk about all the things that we're doing at the Boulder Chamber to support our businesses and make sure they're successful and to lift our economy. So this month, or this month starting March, is Women's History Month. It's not just Boulder, it's national. And it is an opportunity for all of us to recognize the achievement of women leaders in our nation's history. And Boulder Chamber, we want to take this opportunity to recognize business women leaders in our community. And today we are so fortunate to have two great guests, Sandra Weeks, who is the president and project manager for Blue Spruce Construction, and Kate Brown, who is the founder and president of Boulder Organic. And so we're going to have a fun conversation with the two of them. But before we do, just have a couple of quick announcements. So first of all, we are having an event that is so big, a social networking gathering so enormous that we're calling it the Mega Mixer. And it's with our Northwest Chamber Alliance colleagues. Those are the chamber organizations who we partner with from around Boulder and Broomfield counties. We're getting together with all our members, and we're going to connect, network, and socialize and have some fun together. And that's on March 24th. So look for it on the screen and then register as soon as you can. March 24th, the Mega Mixer with the Northwest Chamber Alliance. Look forward to seeing you there. And then also want to alert you that we've posted our updated 2021 policy framework. These are the guardrails for our advocacy efforts on behalf of the business community, our CAC, our Community Advisory Council, as well as our Boulder membership, give us input on the policies and initiatives they want us to pursue from city council all the way to the federal government level. And then our board approves it annually just to make sure that we're following your guidance in our advocacy efforts on behalf of your business. So look for that posted online, really informative. And also if you have future input for us on policies we should be pursuing, make sure to reach out to us. And then finally, I don't know if you caught it, but the celebration of leadership was an inspiring, just powerful event for our business community and a great tribute to amazing business leaders in our community. And I urge you all to check out the recording of that event. It's posted right here, but you can go online and grab it. It's well worth the watching. Some powerful statements by business leaders in our community, but also a great celebration and tribute to the work that we've all gone through and collaborated on in helping to address the needs of our businesses and our community through this COVID-19 challenging period. So urge you to check out that celebration of leadership recording. Okay, enough for me. Now it's a chance for us to hear from some wonderful women and great friends of mine, business leaders in our community. And I'm going to start with Sandra Weeks, who is, as I mentioned, she is the president and project manager for Blue Spruce Construction. And when you think about the construction fields, it's an area where I would say traditionally male dominated, and something that obviously we want to address as we reach in all areas of industry more gender equality. And I wonder, Sandra, what is how did your business get started, and what is the focus of your work?
John, thanks for your interest and inviting me on behalf of Blue Spruce. Yes, this is Women's History Month, and as you mentioned, there is historically a very small amount of women in construction. There's statistically about 10% across the board of women in construction, and even less than that of women in positions of management. So it's an interesting field and not enough women, and hopefully we can encourage even more women to be part of this business. A little bit about quickly Blue Spruce. I started Blue Spruce in 1997. We are a general contracting company. We do both residential and commercial construction. On the residential side, we do mostly renovations, additions, and some new construction ground up. On the commercial side, we do tenant finish, office finishes, uh, some retail, and of course, as everyone knows, with COVID, the commercial sector, and especially restaurant construction, is down significantly. So Blue Spruce has been fortunate that we do both residential and commercial work, and right now the residential side is a lot more active. We have 7 full-time employees. We have 50% women. Plus, we have a wonderful pool of subcontractors that we've developed through the years. We are a certified WBEC, a women business-owned company. Yeah, we've been fortunate to do some notable restaurant work in the area. We did the Greenbrier Inn. They had a fire several years ago. We rebuilt their bar and maintained the whole historic field. We did years ago when I first started, we did the Flagstaff House, dining room and bar. We've done Snarf's Restaurant, Delis, and Rincon Argentino, and Pica's Taqueria. So just a few of the businesses that people might recognize. And I don't know, do you want me to get into how I got started, or do you want Kate to
I'd be interested to know, Sandra, so how did you get into this line of work? Again, non-traditional for women business leaders.
So, some people have a plan from when they're young, know exactly what they want to do. That wasn't me. I feel like I've been fortunate, I've been blessed. I've had opportunities, doors opened, and I was able to take advantage of those opportunities, which led me to where I am today. How I got started. I moved to Boulder, a single parent, had a 3-year-old daughter, my East Coast is kicking in there, in 1973. And we moved to Boulder. And Boulder was a very different town. You could live in Boulder making minimum wage. There was affordable housing. The first place that I lived in was at 4th and Arapahoe, just down the street from Eben G. Fine Park. We lived in what now we call an ADU. Basically, it was just a little shed, little house behind the main house. $75 a month for rent. I had the opportunity to move into the front house, within the year with a friend of mine, 3-bedroom house, $300 a month. So opportunities, right? I was kicking around, making the best of it. I cleaned houses for a while. And then the economy in the late 70s was not doing well, high unemployment. The government started this work program. It was called CETA, the Comprehensive Education Training Act or something. And what they did is the government provided 50% funding and the business provided the other 50% of the cost of the project. And more importantly, what they did is they teamed up a skilled and an unskilled worker and basically introduced the unskilled worker into a trade, paid them, gave the skilled worker an income. So what we did was we go around to little preschools and churches and build, bookshelves and climbing equipment and stuff like that. That introduced me. I don't know that I ever held a hammer before that. So that introduced me into power tools and building. My next job was working for a cabinet shop. And it was not anything glamorous. It was a cabinet shop right across from the Flatirons Golf Course on East Arapahoe. And there was a furniture store, a furniture business called Contemporary Comfort a million years ago. And they provided furniture made out of 2x4s and 2x6s. and it was affordable furniture. So the company I was working for, we would get these 2x4s and 2x6s and uh, uh, put them in these giant vats of black Watco oil and black walnut oil. And that's what I did all day. To me, it was an opportunity. I had a job. Of course, I'd come home covered in oil and smelling, but I just was happy to have that opportunity. The next job I went to was also at a cabinet shop, and he actually did mill work. So there were drill presses and these giant equipment. This was called a time saver, a big giant sander. And then I got the opportunity to learn how to build things using these big tools. And actually, they were providing milling the 2x4s and 2x6s for contemporary comfort that I previously had, dipped in walnut oil. After that, I went to work for a general contractor running his cabinet shop. And it was out in Marshall, again, many years ago, late, maybe 1979, 1980. And we would build the casework or the millwork for the businesses. So we did the casework for the Buccaneer. The Buccaneer was a ladies' clothing store here in Boulder and Denver. Shout out to Buck Buchanan. We would build these fixtures, and then we would go and install them. Or if it was a residence for this general contractor, we would go and install the trim and base and closet shelving and things like that. So I got the experience of building things and then installing things. And I was working with two other women, and it was a great experience, and it taught me a lot. This was probably early 1980s when Crossroads Mall was doing a big expansion. Crossroads Mall was basically what 29th Street Mall is, but it was an indoor mall, and they were bringing in they were doing a big expansion. They were doing bringing in national franchises and local businesses too. So the contractor I was working for asked me if I wanted to come into the office to learn how to do estimating. So opportunity. A little bit of trial by fire, went into the office and did estimating and learned a lot. Did that, worked for him for years, and until I don't know, he had some issues and he closed his business. In the meantime, I had another child, a child that was born in 1985, and wound up going to work with a colleague of mine from that previous business. And he and I worked together, and he did all the field, running the jobs in the field. I was in the office, and I would do the estimating and the contracting and negotiating with clients and so forth. So I got to really learn, I got immersed in the business side of construction. That ended not well. I found myself in 1996 unemployed, single mom, and not knowing what to do. And didn't really have much resources. And I had a lot of support. People really were encouraging. And I decided really the only thing, this is what I know, is construction. So I took my test, got my license, hung out my shingle. And a lot of ups and downs, trial by, good and bad. And basically here I am today. And again, opportunities presented themselves, and I feel really very fortunate. I have a wonderful team, and actually my son works for me and hopefully will be taking over the company. So just wanted to kind of give you the start to kind of, hate to say finish, but to where I am now.
I love that story. I mean, just it's the trajectory of somebody who seizes opportunities to get trained in a unusual field for probably, as you said, nothing you'd ever done before, and then built on just different elements of experience to then own and run your own business. So I appreciate that trajectory and just how you built your way into that career. Really, really great story, Sandra. Thank you. Well, let's turn it to Kate. And I have heard a little bit about her experience starting Boulder Organic. It's also a fun story that I'd love the audience to hear. But if you can tell us then about the business Boulder Organic,
Sure.
and how did that business get started, Kate?
Sure. Thank you so much. So in 2006, I was working, well, my background is counseling psychotherapy. So I was traditionally a couples counselor. I was taking a little time off to be a stay-at-home mom. And my daughter had her tonsils out when she was it was 2006. So she had her tonsils out, and I, was busy, and I ran to the grocery store to buy some fresh soup for her. And I came home, and I had always made my own soup. I come from, my mom was a great cook, and did a lot of scratch cooking, and so I bought this fresh refrigerated soup, and when I opened it up, I was so shocked at what it looked like and what it smelled like and the ingredient list. And so I kind of was sharing this experience with some other friends of mine that were moms, and started to see this. And people love to talk about food. They either like to cook or they like to eat or both. And so, people light up like a light bulb when they like to talk about their grandmother's soup recipes or whatever's near and dear to their heart. And I noticed this big discrepancy between what I was finding in the marketplace and what people were talking about when they were talking about this very nourishing, emotional, nostalgic soup, food for them. And you just don't get that when you're talking about salads, I got to tell you. Just not the same thing. But so I was curious about it, and I started doing some soup tastings at my house. I started creating just some different recipes, and we'd have people over, and we'd give them a lot of wine, give them a little liquid courage, and some, feedback forms to fill out. And it was so much fun, and people loved it. And they said, we want to come back, and we want to. So anyway, through one of those soup tastings, we got the attention of the Pearl Street Whole Food Store. One of the attendees was connected somehow. And so they called me and said, hey, we have this soup program. Come on in and tell us about it. And I thought, oh, sure I do. Sure, I have a soup program. So, I think I got a thermos full of soup and slapped some kind of a hand-drawn logo on the front of it. And we ended up launching in the Pearl Street Whole Food Store. And, most times when people come up with an idea like this, they immediately find a co-manufacturer. So they don't have to have the capital expenditure of, building their own facility and everything. And I looked and looked and looked, and I couldn't find anybody that was going to make it the way I wanted it. They were all, it was going to be the soup that I found in the store before, with thickeners and emulsifiers and all the stuff that I didn't want. So I decided to put together my own little production facility. So we started really small, and it was so great. This was the part for me about, kind of going from being a product developer to being in manufacturing. And I didn't know anything about manufacturing. And, there aren't very many women who are leading food manufacturing operations. And so it was kind of nice because I didn't know the rules, and I didn't know what I should or shouldn't be doing. So I just tried everything. And I kind of felt like I was a little bit under the radar. When we first started, I was cooking, and I was cleaning, and I was delivering, and I was driving the forklift. And, I remember there was this really important point for me where I remember a trucking company pulled up, and I was kind of out back, and he said, hey, little darling, go find someone to load up my truck. And I said, well, I'm all you got, honey. So, and I thought about what choosing my reaction at that point, and I thought, I can either, be upset about this and feel offended, or I can just single-handedly take on the whole trucking, educating the entire trucking industry about that women really can't drive forklifts. And so I just got to know everybody, and they got to trust that I could drive my forklift through the snow, and that I could load up their truck properly, and that I was not gonna, mess it up. And we built these great relationships, and that has really stuck with me, in that I choose my reactions to how people regard me as a woman in manufacturing. And I can either be stomp off mad and be offended, or I can say, you know what, this can be a learning opportunity for everybody. But it would really afforded me kind of a way to go in under the radar, because when I would go to a stainless steel manufacturer, they assumed that I didn't know what I was talking about. And so I got to do things a little bit differently, and it was really fun. I kind of felt like I was undercover.
I love that story, and how in essence, because the next question I was going to ask is, what challenges did you face as a woman entrepreneur, business leader? But you've already turned the question on its head, and in a way taken advantage of that, your gender experience and the lack of women leaders in that field at the time. But I guess I just will ask, were there barriers and hurdles that you faced as a woman in an industry, as you said, that had very few women?
Definitely. I think definitely. I think there were many times when I felt like I had to prove my credibility, or prove that I knew what I was talking about. And this was in, getting financing and buying equipment, and, a lot of different places where I had to just kind of take a deep breath and say, obviously, in the eyes of the person that I'm talking with right now, I don't have the same level of competence that maybe a man would. So I just need to be patient with this, patient and firm, and just stick with this until this person has some confidence that I know what I'm talking about. And I have to say that I wasn't always level-headed, and I wasn't always patient and calm. There were some, really irritating moments when I'm like, really? Or, don't call me little gal. So, but I've just, and there have also been people who have really surprised me, in their incredible promotion and support around being a woman in manufacturing. And I think, one of the greatest things, I came into this with a huge gift, and that was that my mom was a business owner in the ski industry when I was growing up. And that is not, it's maybe not as male dominated as manufacturing, but it was still a fairly male industry in the 60s and 70s. And she never batted an eye. And, I've never found it harder to do anything because I'm a woman. And so, but maybe that's because I don't have the experience of what it's like to be a man. I don't know. But I've never kind of taken that on as, oh gosh, this is just going to be an uphill battle because I'm a woman. That's never crossed my mind.
That's beautiful. So confidence in yourself, also some role models that you've been able to build your experience off of. And then ultimately, as you said earlier, sometimes just flipping perceptions upside down and taking advantage of somebody's maybe ignorance about the capabilities of this woman in front of them. So really, I just love that approach, Kate, and taking those challenges on and turning them into opportunities. And I guess I'll just turn then the question back to Sandra. Sandra, the field of construction, notoriously male dominated. You talked about only 10% women. What difficulties, challenges you face, and then how did you overcome those as a woman in that profession?
So when I started out, and uh, it was a novelty. I was the novelty. Um, Mostly where I would run into issues was when I would go to what we call a job walk. So when you're competitively bidding a job, you go to the job site. There's usually the architect, the client, people, and then all of the other contractors that are also bidding the job. And I was initially I was dismissed, ignored, and for the most part, they wanted nothing to, it was like the good old boys club. They didn't want to see women, getting into this club. What I don't know how I did it, but I found enough confidence to be able to. I'd be the person asking questions almost every single time, and part of it kind of gave me a false sense of security, but it also, established in the room that I was to be taken seriously. Through the years, I found that people get to know me. The questions I ask are a little bit more serious, a little bit more impactful. And so I've sort of earned my place at the table, if you will. The good thing is now, when I go to these job walks, there are probably almost 50% women that show up. They're not necessarily the owners, but they may be somebody that's representing the estimator, or they may be the estimator, or they may be a project coordinator. So it's nice seeing women taking their seat at the table. And the more you do it, the more confidence you get. The more you understand how to navigate through those situations. So, I have to say, even though it was challenging because I was dismissed, they eventually, came around, because there'd be a lot of times you're bidding against the same people, and then to be validated was probably the best part of all of it.
Winning those deals always is the best medicine, right?
Yeah.
But I will say that impressive to have the confidence to ask the naive questions, and then that builds more confidence in the ability to just stand up and say, listen, I need to understand this, and that gains respect. So appreciate that, just as a learning and a lesson for those who are listening. But I ask you this just in sort of a closing question. What would you suggest as sort of a lesson that you've learned that you would have as advice for future business leaders or women in general in their own career success?
So, this sort of seems cliche, and I've been giving this a little bit of thought, and I keep coming back to, you have to do what you love. You have to do what you enjoy, because if you don't get up and like going to work, if you don't get up and feel energized about what you do, you're never going to be able to have that. You're not going to be authentic, first of all. And authenticity is probably one of the more important things. And I guess I keep coming back to, I love what I do. I feel rewarded. I feel validated. I feel that what I do makes a difference. Whether it's, a restaurant we opened, or, we've just built somebody's dream home, and developing relationships. And some of them are relationships that are just at that moment, but some of them are you develop a relationship that you become friends with these people, that you've worked with. But really, at the end of the day, my takeaway is you have to love what you do.
That's a beautiful lesson. I would say we're talking on Women's History Month about women business leadership, but that's a message I'd say that's universal, and I appreciate that one. Well, let me then turn that final question to Kate. We've talked a lot about the strength you had to have to overcome some of the bias that people perceived about your capabilities. You've overcome it. You're a successful businesswoman leader in our community. What advice do you have for other businesswomen leaders or for the future and women in general in their career success?
Oh gosh. I think my North Star is don't be afraid of failure. That is so important. And I have failed so much and I always learn something from it. And I learned so little from the times when I do it right. And I think if you can have the patience to, there's that feeling of like, oh, I messed this up, but it always transforms. It always transforms. If you wait long enough, there's always something good that comes out of it or some lesson learned. And I actually look back on a lot of my failures and think, I am so glad that happened. I didn't feel it then, but failure is not as dire. There's always something really rich in there. So to embrace that a little bit. But I just want to say, I love what Sandra said about asking questions, because I learned that going into a situation where I felt intimidated or I felt like I didn't know as much, was bluffing it is a really bad idea. It just digs you in deeper and deeper and deeper. And it takes a lot of courage to say, wait, you're sitting with your banker and saying, you know what, I don't know what any of those acronyms are. We need to go back because I don't understand what you just said. That takes a lot of courage. And I think people respect that courage. The last thing that I want to say is that there's such a great community in Boulder County of women helping women. And, kind of don't take a step forward unless you reach back behind and grab someone by the hand to pull them forward. And I love that. I really love the community. So I think mentorship is very important. But I think this conversation about women in leadership needs to involve both women and men.
Yeah.
And I know that there are a lot of men who are pushing us forward and really excited to see the success and the progress that we're making. So it's not just women helping women. It's got to be everybody.
Yeah, that is a beautiful message for this discussion about business women's leadership and elevating women in professions where there may not be gender equity and trying to drive that bias and whatever other hurdles away. It can't just be women helping women. It needs to be all of us lifting each other. So I'll tell you, you too, Sandra and Kate, lift me. You're both amazing mentors for me and business women leaders who I look to when I'm thinking about, gee, what kind of models do I want to have for my own success? So I thank you both. And I will take those messages. Gotta love what you do. Well, heck, I love what I do here at the Boulder Chamber. So that's check that one off. But it's true, such the message about learning from your failures, just really key. You can, success comes and there's not as much to learn there as much as the difficult times. So thank you both so much for being leaders in our community, for driving successful businesses, which are critical to our economic success, but also for being great models for women and men in business. So thank you for being with us. And we will use that opportunity to close out this Boulder Chamber chat. But I do have just a quick couple of reminders. Remember, we have that networking event, that social gathering that's so big, we're calling it the Mega Mixer with the Northwest Chamber Alliance colleagues on March 24th. So look forward to that. And also online, be sure to check out our 2021 policy framework for advocacy information and guidance. And then as well, we're going to have online, we're posting the Celebration of Leadership event. I urge you to check that out, just honoring some incredible business leaders in our community, but also a celebration of all that we have come to together and the collaboration and success we've had in overcoming the COVID-19 challenges. And so with that, as I always like to close this event, we are so close to being through with this COVID-19 mess, but we got to still make sure that we are cautious because We don't want those numbers to go up and then have to disrupt our business activities. So follow those guidelines, make sure that you're operating according to public health guidance, but also you play a role by wearing your mask. And we'll see you next couple of weeks on Chamber Chat.